I answered the front desk at 3:02 a.m. The name on the room was ours. I'm not jealous of bodies, I'm jealous of who gets to sign the paper. Bodies tell the truth if you stop staging them. Signatures decide which truth is allowed to arrive. At 3:02 a.m., my phone lit with a number I didn't recognize and the kind of courtesy reserved for uniforms. "Good evening," the woman said. "Front desk, Harbor and Finch. We're confirming the additional key for room 1704 and the late checkout. The name is Jace. Do you need the last initial?" The last initial was mine. It always is when he books fast and isn't in the mood to choose. I put my palm over my mouth because sometimes the body reaches for doors it can't see. "No," I said. "Thank you," she asked politely for nothing else. The call ended like a bow in a language I don't speak. The apartment resumed being a room that had learned the habit of pretending not to listen. Jace had texted at 10:41, "Studio late, wait up." I'd waited anyway, like a person who believes in the right kind of stupid. I'd filmed the coffee at 7:05 p.m. earlier because I'm boring and ritual is cheap and captioned it here. He had reacted with the thumbs up he uses when he is already late for the part of the evening that requires decisions. At 12:10, a second message arrived. "If I stay, I'll call." He didn't. I still have the kettle. When I turn the flame on, water does the one thing it can be trusted to do: become itself. Boiling is the only honest violence I allow in our house. I let the kettle sing until I was sure the neighbors would write about it, turned the gas off, and poured 2 mugs out of habit. I left his on the counter like a job left open for a colleague who already quit. At 3:41, the lock cleared its throat. Jace stepped in with his hoodie open, his shoes hooked by 2 fingers, the neon on the river putting a silver seam in his hair. He kissed the air beside my cheek, our administrative truce, and said, "You're up," as if I had violated etiquette by staying in the scene. "The front desk called," I said. "They were very helpful." His eyes did that thing where pupils become clocks. He smiled in that careful way that tries not to lose. "Oliver forgot his wallet," he said. "He's in from Chicago. He got put up at the Harbor and Finch, but the studio couch was pretending to be a solution. We walked back. He showered. I let the night think it was a good idea and then came home." "Do I need to pretend I have never heard a sentence?" I asked, "because my mouth has better reflexes than my dignity. Or can we agree the night thinks it's a lawyer?" He set his shoes on the mat like they were witnesses asked to be sworn in. "You told me once you hate being surprised by nouns," he said. "The hotel is a noun. I am the verb. The sentence still ends here." I'm not a detective. I edit sound for films that keep choosing people who don't get the endings they deserve and still somehow find ways to be forgiven by strangers. If you give me a lie, I don't know where to put the echo. I put my hand on the kettle and let the heat do the thinking. He watched my hand the way you watch a verdict arrive. At lunch, I took the call to the only person who treats panic like paperwork. Matt listened with his head tilted, the way a mechanic listens to a noise you've learned to hum. "One question only," he said. "Ask why or who, not both. If you start with who, the night gets to write your minutes." He ate his sandwich like a man who trusts bread to be what it is. "And when you go home," he added, "move the chair." The chair trick is ridiculous and effective. Put a chair in the middle of the kitchen, not where it belongs, and force your body to agree that the scene has changed. I set hours in the space between the sink and the table. Jace saw it and smiled like a man grateful to be caught kindly. He put both palms flat on the table, the way our therapist taught us when we wanted to give words somewhere to land. "Which question?" he asked. "Why," I said. "Start with why." "Because the part wasn't coming," he said. "Because Oliver believes I mix better in rooms that don't remember me. because the couch in the studio lies about being rest, because he had a hotel key and the kind of mouth that thinks it knows how to ask, because I wanted to say no and didn't, because I left before the part where we had to choose a verb neither of us could keep. "Did you kiss him?" I asked, breaking Matt's rule like a boy with a stick and a fence. "No," he said, and his mouth made the shape I collect for truth. "I thought about whether he'd be good at being forgiven. That's not noble, it's specific. I didn't kiss him, he didn't kiss me. I opened the door and closed it and came here." "Here," I repeated, and the word felt like both a blessing and a dare. He rounded the chair like a man deciding to put his hands where answers live. He reached for my face but paused until I let my mouth be honest. The first kiss was apology without a theory. The second was a rehearsal for keeping a promise we kept breaking on paper. His fingers slid under my shirt and learned, again, the small places forgiveness has to pass through. I pressed him back against the counter, and his breath found the sound that never auditions. The night put its ear to our kitchen and pretended it knew anything about mercy. I will not map the rest for a platform that likes virtue more than accuracy. You can have the mouth at a shoulder, a palm at a wrist that understands consent, a belt that gave in because ceremony is a bad joke at 4 in the morning, the kind of heat that does not require a witness because it already has one. The next afternoon, Oliver sent a text that tasted like a coin. "Thanks for last night. I owe you a run without drama." Jace showed me the screen without instructions. He typed back, "Try a day," and put the phone face down as if to teach it humility. Of course the world decided we needed a quiz. 3 days later, at a gallery that likes its light more than it likes its art, Oliver appeared in a suit that thought it had a throne. He said both our names the way a good actor reads stage directions and kissed my cheek like proof that being polite used to be harder. He had the kind of face the city enjoys renting out by the hour. "The river makes everyone dishonest," he said, looking at Jace. "Tonight we pretend it doesn't." I said I prefer kitchens. Jace said we prefer here. We put our mouths on each other after the opening, not because Oliver had been beautiful, but because the room had tried to volunteer to be the author, and I was in the mood to remind it we write our own captions. On the couch, his hand found my rib, third one on the left, the place where my breath keeps spare change, and pressed until the noise my chest makes when I choose him escaped the way it wanted to. He learned it again. I kept it. The next time the hotel appeared, it wasn't with a phone call. It was a stain of neon caught in the corner of Jace's eye when he looked at the window at midnight and didn't want to call it an ache. "Do you want to go see the water?" he asked. And I said yes, because sometimes the bravest thing we do is make the river a noun that can be handled. We stood under the harbor and Finch's awning like two men waiting to ask permission from a sky that doesn't care. The front desk smiled like a person tired of needing kindness to be their job. The elevator counted us the way a priest counts habit. In the lobby mirror, I recognized the version of myself the city prefers, awake enough to confess, pretty enough to pretend I'm not. We took the roof key and stood against the rail while the river made its case. "Are you going to hate me here or at home?" he asked. "I prefer home," I said, and he laughed because kitchens keep better hours. Oliver texted at 1:13, "You two breathe better together." It wasn't a compliment. It was a man teaching himself to bow. I typed nothing and let the message lie there until it looked as small as it was. He got invited a week later to a residency in the mountains with windows the size of apologies. He forwarded the PDF with every attachment like a man who had learned where courage keeps its paperwork. "I want to go without disappearing," he wrote. "I'll send pages, not alibis. When I get back, ask me what I wrote before you ask me what I did." I taped 2 sentences to the fridge under the rubber orange that never argues. Addresses in the open. A good night here voice note every day. The first night he sent me the sound of a room deciding not to pretend it was a forest. Today the table forgave me, he said. On the third night my phone stayed dark and the app tried to persuade me to audition for suspicion. I moved the chair instead. Bodies believe what mouths can't yet. He called the next morning with a voice that made the kettle think there is a God. I almost kissed the window, he said. It didn't know your name. I closed the blinds. He came back with a suitcase that didn't slam and 2 pages he treated like animals. They're not good, he said. They're mine, I said, and we performed our small religion. 2 men in a kitchen, the chair where it belongs, paper pretending it can save us and sometimes succeeding. He leaned into me and closed his eyes. It is astonishing how explicit that can be. We saw Oliver one more time at a bar that believes it knows who you are before you introduce yourself. He said our names, and Jay stepped closer to me in that half-inch that earns a medal no one manufactures. I'm training a new track to forgive itself, Oliver said, as if apology were a muscle group. Tell it to ask the kitchen, I said, and he smiled like a man who has decided to start a better habit. The mobile key app still exists. Sometimes at stupid hours my thumb goes there the way teenagers go to bruises. I scroll past, used at 12:57 a.m., and do not disturb set until, and let the numbers shrink down to the size they always were. The door at home keeps clearing its throat at decent times. The kettle keeps its appointment at 7:05. The chair earns its living in the middle of the kitchen when words want to riot. We are boring men who have trained the night to find us anyway. If another night offers me a notification with the kind of honesty nobody asked for, or a door that wants to act like the only noun that matters, or a man with a voice like a staircase, I hope I remember the handful of humiliating, useful acts that got us through this one. Put water on. Move the chair. Ask why before who. Hold the second before contact and let it finish being the scene. Then wait for the small throat clearing of a lock like it is the first note in a song the room can tune to. We did not get away with anything. We stayed. We are still staying. Jace says here, and my body has stopped auditioning for suspicion. The harbor and Finch can keep its invoices and its polite doormen and its windows that try to turn rivers into nouns. We'll keep being the address. Or, on the nights we can't, we'll be the map that admits its misprints and still shows a way back through lobby air and elevator mirrors and hallways that learned our names. Into a kitchen where a chair knows what it's for, and a kettle performs the only miracle it was promised.